We're real people. We're living real lives. We're serving a real God. Hey, welcome home. So building real relationships with real individuals. We're really as real as it gets, and we want you to be home. Hey, welcome home. Christ Point's home, and we want you to be here. Radio, TV, social media, Facebook Live. We are Christ Point Church. We're one church in 2 locations, multiple online media outlets, and we want to say to you, welcome home. We're excited that you have joined in with us this morning. Facing the Lion. And I'm going to tell you, let me give you just a little bit of background on this. God gave this to me back in early June, maybe late May. And I actually wrote the article. The article went in the paper, and I just really was so excited about it that I just tabled it. I just felt like the Lord would say, put more into this than just a week. So this is the month of October, and we are teaming up, and we're preaching Facing the Lion this month, and actually 5 weeks here and in Smithville. And sooner or later, we're going to have to face the lion or two in our lives. Sooner or later, we're just not going to be exempt from it. Sooner or later, we're going to have to face one. It may be a physical issue. It may be a spiritual issue. It may be just something so trivial to the person next door, but it is a lion in our area, in our lives. In America, let me just kind of break this down for you. We don't go out in the woods and go squirrel hunting and hear lions roar. It just don't happen. Our idea of a lion is what we see on TV and what we see in the zoo. Now, this was my experience growing up. Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. That was what we had. I don't know. You can watch all kinds of them now, but man, I'm telling you, about 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, somewhere about the time cartoons went off, when my dad wasn't working us like dogs, or if it was raining, we got to stay home, and we got to watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And you know what? I'll never forget the lion chasing after the herd of whatevers. It's always a herd that the lion is after. It's always the herd. But that is our mentality. But now, as time has progressed, and as media outlets have softened, we see the lion as like the movie The Lion King. See, the lion, he judges fairly. According to The Lion King, the lion judges fairly. He brings stability to the region. He keeps others protected from predators. He protects the weak. You know, I'm just going to show you a video. This is really how it is. Watch the subtitles. Let's turn it up real loud. Now, let me just lay that out there for you. All that I said earlier, they ain't none of that right. The lion, he does not judge, he does not bring stability, he does not chase predators, and he does not protect. He's out to eat you. That's exactly, they got it right. I mean, you know, we all love the Lion King movie, but that one I love. They got it right. He's out to eat. He's out to eat that guy. He's out to, they're just having a good time. The zebras are panting their feet, and you know, they're like, when he grows up, he's going to eat every one of us. So the thing is the lion's job is to devour. That's his job. It's to devour. See, the difference between us and the lion is the lion knows his role. He knows it pretty well. He's pretty good at it. He stays focused on his role, and he doesn't get sidetracked. You know, I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't make a good lion. I wouldn't make a good lion when I'm crawling through the grass as a lion, about to pounce on an unsuspected sheep or a gazelle, you know, and if a little bug went flying by, I just would go right with it. Hey, there's a bug. Oh gosh, I'd have to have Ritalin before I could get back on the lion trail. So it don't work too good for me. Lions don't care who you are, and they don't care who I am. See, he will eat you, and he won't think twice about it. You say, well, I don't know about that. Well, I tell you what, here's what you do. You just try this out. Go up to the zoo in Knoxville, go to Nashville, go to the zoo, and just jump over in a lion pen. You see, you're thinking right now, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because you value life. You like limbs, and you like fingers where they're supposed to be. His job is to devour. He will eat you. Now, let me tell you, I've heard this said, and this is the truth. The lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of the sheep. Let me say it again. The lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinion of the sheep. What that means is, he don't care if you're not ready to be attacked today. That don't bother him. He doesn't care if you say, well, today's not a good day for an attack. He doesn't care about that. And a lion can run up to 35 miles an hour. He can leap 30 feet with a single bound, kind of like Superman. His jaws can easily crush and they can easily tear. That's his job. So I just kind of got to digress here a little bit and just throw a little Bubba in here. We're from the South, and you just got to throw something about Bubba in there. So we got to stay focused on the lion when the lion's at the front door. See, Bubba had a little bit of problem. He had the flu, and they drink coffee every morning, and Bubba wasn't there for 3 or 4 mornings. And all of a sudden, he pops back in Thursday, Friday, something like that. Next Monday, Bubba, what's up? Well, I had the flu. Well, how'd that work out for you? It was wonderful. It was wonderful. You mean you had the flu, and you say it was wonderful? Oh, yeah, it was wonderful. How was the flu wonderful? Well, I got to stay home. See, my wife gets to stay home all the time. But this week, I got to stay home with my wife. And every time the mailman or the milkman or the cable man walked up the driveway, my wife would run out saying, my husband's home, my husband's home. So that'll sink into you in a little while. He thought that his wife was excited to see him. I'm going to tell you, not everyone that knocks on the front door is innocent. And some are lions. And we better learn to recognize the roar. I'm just telling you, we better learn to recognize the roar. So I want to go into 1 Samuel, and let's look at our first lion encounter. This month, we're going to look at lion encounters. And I want you to go with me, look at the first lion encounter, and this guy's name is David. Then Saul said to David, you're not able to go against this Philistine to fight him, for you're but a youth. You're just a kid. Man, you're just a kid. Everybody who's under the age of 20, wave at me. See, you guys can't. They know what? You guys can't do that. You guys aren't able to go against this guy because this guy is too big and too bad for you. Automatically, somebody is saying the lion is too big. The king is saying the lion's too big. The Philistine, you can't fight this guy, for you are but a youth while he has been a warrior from his youth. This guy's, you can't do this. But David said to Saul, your servant was tending his father's sheep. Here's my resume. Oh, great king, here's my resume. I'm going to lay my resume out for you. What qualifications do you have to go against this guy? Well, here's my qualifications. When I was tending my father's sheep, a lion or bear came and took a lamb from the flock, and I went after him. See, that's my job. I went after him, and I attacked him, and I rescued it from his mouth, and when he rose up against me, I didn't run away from him. I seized him by his beard, and I struck him, and I killed him. And your servant has killed both a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine, he'll be like one of them, since he has taunted the armies of the living God. And David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, that's the same God. I don't serve a different God. He's going to deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, well, go. I kind of picture it this way. Go and Lord be with you. Good luck with that. I mean, that's exactly the way I read it. Well, good luck with that. This ain't going to be a good day for Israel. Saul's just like, man, this is not going to work good for us. So David, let me break it down for you. David was a warrior, but before he was a warrior, David was a shepherd. David was a shepherd. Now let's look at ourselves right here real quick. I just want to bring us right back into this thing. We're all shepherds in some form. We all have a shepherd's heart in us. We're either shepherding a church like a pastor would. We're shepherding a class like a teacher would. We're shepherding children like our children's pastor and her team are. We're shepherding teenagers like our youth pastors and their teams are. We're shepherding groups like our facilitators and small groups are. We're shepherding our home. We're shepherding our children. See, we're in some form, you say, well, I don't have any of those. You got a girlfriend, you're shepherding. You got a boyfriend, you're shepherding. You know what? We have been called to be shepherds. David didn't always feed the sheep. Now, I'm going to tell you, this promise has been written down since June. David didn't always feed the sheep, and when the lion roared, he recognized it. When the lion roared, he recognized it, and this is the way I picture it. The lion's real stealthy. The lion's just real on a prowl, real stealthy, and he keys in. You know how you see cats, He's just so slow and so methodical. And when he gets to the point to where he knows he's got enough space to outrun that thing in a surprise, and he lets this roar out, and the entire herd goes into a frantic, chaotic, running everywhere, and all of a sudden the lion keys in a split second, and he's gone. He's after that one that's unprotected. See, the lion roars, and David understood it. But see, David went from feeding sheep to protecting sheep. David knew when it was time to put the bucket down. You know what? I am a shepherd. David says, I feed my sheep. But there's going to come a point in time when I hear the lion roar that the bucket gets set down. And when the bucket gets set down, the stick gets picked up. And when I get the stick picked up, this is my first line. The stick is the first thing, but you don't want me to pull my sling out. I'll get my sling out, but if you don't want me to, you better get out of here. See, the same reaction, that's the same reaction that jerks your 6-year-old out of the street. So you say, well, okay, what do you mean by that? I'm a living example that my mama beat the living daylights out of me right over here by Manual Officer Store when I was a kid. It's not there. It's the Veterans Park. I went running across the street. My mama grabbed me, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to kind of probably role play it harder than what it was. My mama grabbed me, and my arm went completely out of socket. And she jerked me around, and when she jerked me around, she already had me whipping me when she got me around. And everybody driving through reminds me of it to this day. Saw your mama whipping you in the street when you was little. I got my whipping, and you know what? Got my riddling right after that. So she whipped me. She jerked my rear end back because that's the same knee-jerk reaction that we have with a 6-year-old that we have when the 6-year-old turns 16 and the drug kids come around. I'll jerk your arm clean out of socket if I have to. That mama don't know no different. That mama says, I'm not feeding you right now. I've got a stick and I will beat you with it if I have to. But when I start beating off the line, you might get, a friend of mine said one time when Daddy get to whip me, I just get close to him because he couldn't extend as much. He said, I just get close to him and the whipping didn't hurt as bad. Sometimes everybody gets hit. When we were growing up, everybody got, once a whipping got going, I liked it. So I'm pro to disciplining our children. So, in the same reaction, we do the same thing here as we do there. Let me explain to you what that means. The same sling that we used to kill the lion with today is going to be the same sling that we're going to have to pull out and use to kill the giant with down the street. A week now, a year from now, 2 years from now. The same sling is going to have to kill a different kind of lion. The same sling. David tended his father's sheep, did a good job. When the lion came, he came with a roar. See, the sheep will scatter. And when they hear this roar, they'll scatter. But David shows us how to lead like a shepherd. See, when the shepherd's calming voice speaks louder than the lion's roar, man, we're getting somewhere now. When the shepherd's calming voice speaks louder than the lion's roar, then the sheep don't scatter. See, the lion's job is to devour, and when the shepherd's calming voice speaks louder than the lion's roar, the lion can't devour. He can't devour because you know what? He comes off with that roar, and the first thing that they do in David's camp, in David's field, where he's got all these sheep, the first thing they do is they look up and they start trembling, but they start backing up to their shepherd. They start getting close to David. You know what? Sometimes when the lion roars, it might be advantageous for us to back up to the Lord. Just back up to the Lord. Don't run frantic, because that's what the devil wants us to do. I'm going to back up to the Lord. You know, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to back up to the Lord. And here's where I'm going, right straight down here. We're going to start praying. We're going to start praying. David shows us how to lead like a shepherd, to keep us from being devoured. David rescued his sheep on multiple occasions. The word says lions and bears. So we know that there were multiple occasions. Now David finds himself now in the story that we read. He's defended himself. He's defended his sheep. He's defended on the fields where nobody knows anything about it. Man, he's the greatest underground success the world's ever seen at this point. He's the greatest leader that nobody knows about. David's out, and I just picture it this way. David's out on a rock watching sheep in the middle of nowhere. And now all of a sudden, he comes onto the battlefield in chapter 17 of 1 Samuel. He comes onto the battlefield, and he's just bringing some food. He's bringing some stuff to the king and to the soldiers and to whoever, his brothers. He's just doing what his dad told him. He's there to bring provisions. And David is a boy. Let's not forget, David is a boy. David is a shepherd boy at that. And nobody is going to give any attention to a shepherd boy. He don't even have a sword. When he walks up, he don't even have a resume. He don't even have scars on him. David walks up, he's just a shepherd boy, and David hears a familiar roar coming from the valley floor. Wait a minute, I've heard this before. It don't sound like the lion I've heard before, but it's all too familiar. I hear a roar just like I heard when that lion roars, and I know his voice. He's heard this sound before, and the giant descended to the valley floor twice every day. And he roared obscenities at the armies of Israel and insulted our living God. That's what he did. And everybody stood back and took it. And David walks up, and David says, I hear it. This is what David saw. He heard it. He saw two plateaus. I've done this for you before. This is what he saw. I'm going to kind of lay it out for you. Plateau, ravine, valley, plateau over here. Got Philistines over here. And they're like, yeah. And then when you got the valley, and then you come back up and you got the Israelites. So the Israelites are assembling for battle, and the Philistines are assembling for battle twice a day, and their champion, this great big guy, walks down into the valley and says, give me one person to fight me, and if you win, we'll be your servants. If I win, you'll be my servants. Just give me one guy, just taunting and just ugly. And you know what? All the armies of Israel stood up here. I hope he goes away. I hope he goes away. See, the Philistines on one side, Israelites on the other. The giant from the Philistine side comes into the valley. Some say he's 9 feet tall, over 9 feet tall. Some say, I don't know exactly how tall he was, but I can guarantee he was big. And this is what some people say. Some people say, some scholars say that he weighed somewhere in the 600-pound range. Do you know what a full-grown lion weighs? Somewhere close to 500 to 600 pounds. So what everybody saw was this great big guy. David sees differently. Let me show you what David sees. David walks up and he says, wait a minute. I see armies of Israel. I see armies of Israel scared and trembling like frightened sheep. I see the armies. What is wrong with our armies? At this point, they're just really forming. So that, maybe only David and Saul have armor and swords. So these guys don't even know how to fight. But I see armies serving the living God that don't even know how to fight. They're frightened like sheep. I hear the roar of a lion throwing these guys into panic. I see it and I hear it, making them doubt God's ability to deliver. I hear this guy screaming to these people. These people, David sees them as sheep. I see them trembling in fear. I see this guy casting doubt into their God, what their God can do. I see a man the size of a lion standing alone by himself. Right there. Mistake number one, Philistines. You sent one guy down in the bottom of the valley to fight the Lord's army. It's mistake number one. I see one guy standing alone, and he's got everybody struck in fear. This nation, this is what I see David saying, this nation don't need a king right now. What this nation needs is a shepherd. And I'm about to show them what a shepherd looks like. Well, David, you can't do this. When the king tells you can't do it, you really can't do it. The king's already told you can't do this. David didn't listen to the king. See, an army over there, this army over here is afraid of being devoured. And this army over here don't even know that they're about to be devoured. And nobody knows what's about to go on except for David. David's the only one. And nobody's going to listen to David because he's a kid. Nobody's going to listen to him. Nobody's going to give him the time of day. He could have went in and said, hey, give me one good guy. I'll show him what to do. Nobody's going to let you show one guy what to do. David knew this. David said, just get out of the way and let me go do this. Get out of the way. I see, this is what David, I believe with all my heart. I see a sling on my hip, and I see smooth stones on the ground. Get out of my way. I've got a job to do. You know what? I tell you what else I see as David. I see I've been here 5 minutes, and I'm about fed up with this guy as I can be. I'm about disgusted as I can be with how my nation is acting against somebody that don't even know the Lord. You know what? I'm about as fed up as I can be. David's encounter with the lion had prepared him for his encounter with the giant. And the Lord that delivered me, let's look at verse 37 again. The Lord that delivered me from the lion is the same God who will deliver me from the hand of the Philistines. Or from the Philistine. But notice, I want you to notice something with me. Notice this. Everyone else, including the king and including me and you, everybody else saw a giant. Everybody saw a giant. Everybody saw Goliath as a giant. David saw him as a man. You notice David don't even talk about him as a giant. David says, hey, my God's going to deliver this Philistine. Just like he delivered the lion. This guy's not a giant. You've made him out to be a giant because his roar sounds bad. You've made him out to be a giant because it's terrible. I'm telling you, he's a man. He's a man, baby. He's a man, and he's going to fall like a man. He's going to fall like a lion. David saw him as a man, simply a man. He saw him as a threat against the sheep. See, everybody else, King Saul, the Israelite soldiers, they saw Goliath as a threat against me. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. It's a threat against me. This is coming against me. David saw it as a threat against the sheep. That's what the shepherd don't look at things like a king looks at things. The shepherd says, look, I see my sheep on the hillside, and I don't like what I see. We need a shepherd right now. We need a shepherd. They saw their problem as a giant. David saw his God as a giant. That's the difference when we see it, when we hear the roar. Come on, we give the Lord a hand clap. Man, it's just... Saul tried to armor up. Now, this is what happens next. Saul says, well, if you're going to do this, good luck with that. If you're going to do this, then this is what you got to do. Go get my armor and put on him. Now, David's probably about this tall. I'm thinking somewhere about 145 pounds. He's about this tall, good-looking guy, nice and tan, athletic build. I'm trying. I'm working it hard here. But David's about this. Saul's about this. Saul says, go get my armor. Saul weighs probably about 260, 275. He's a big, thick guy. Go get my armor and put on him. And David's like, oh, no, king, please. I respectfully decline, O great king, but I cannot enter this battle under your anointing. See, God already pulled the anointing off of Saul at this time. Nobody knows that David's been anointed king out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows who this kid is. But David says, oh great king, I can't enter into battle this way. Your anointing is not what God's placed on me as my anointing. I can't go into battle under your anointing. I got to go under the anointing that God has placed in my life. And I can't go with your battle armor on. It don't work for me. But I want to look at one more thing before we take it on home. Israelite soldiers gathered their armies twice every day. Now think about this. It becomes a ritual. It becomes kind of expected. It becomes, Johnny Hood says, any problem that goes away by itself will come back by itself. It kind of becomes that mentality. If I go to the lines, I may only have a stick, maybe a plowshare. I may have, you know what, I got my chacos on, that's all I do know. And I'm going to have to go battle guys that are seasoned. And they show up, they leave their tents, maybe they're playing cards. Maybe they're washing their shoes. I don't know. But they leave their tents and they line up for battle twice a day. Twice every day. How can we fight giants? We don't have any weaponry. We don't have any experience. And they gathered what they had and they assembled for battle, hoping the problem would go away. Standing up here, biting fingernails. Nervous as I'll get out. Stomach, throwing up everybody. Throwing up everywhere. Their stomachs are so upset. Because maybe he won't show up next time. Maybe if we just show up, we don't have to fight a battle. Maybe if we just show up, he won't come back next time. He'll get tired and he'll just leave in the middle of the night. Hoping the problem will go away. They showed up, they gathered, they disassembled, they came, they went, on and off, twice a day, 40 days, the same way they did every other time, uneventful. Uneventful. They expected nothing, and they prepared for less than that. So this is what I want to ask us today. What lines are we facing? What lines are roaring so loud right now? What is drowning out everything else? And are we showing up for church uneventful? Are we showing up to the house of the living God because we're afraid of the lion? We're showing up uneventful and we're doing our thing and we're leaving. We're leaving the same way we showed up. I'm just trying to challenge us. We're leaving the same way in America. Let's put it that way. We're leaving the same way we showed up. We're going through the motions. Going through the motions don't make the lion roar any less. Going through the motions don't keep him from walking down into the valley floor twice a day. Going through the motions, just showing up for church is not what changes our lives. When we get our slings and we say, Lord, I'm depending on you. This is how I fight my battles. I'm going straight into everything I've got in you. And I'm going into this thing as a shepherd. See, because the lion roars and he sounds bad and it's coming from the battle lines and we think we can't do anything about it. And it's not only do we think we can't do anything about it, the kings told us we can't do anything about it. You're not capable to do what you think is in your mind to do. So let me show you. I'm not going to leave this thing like this. Let me show you how the shepherd takes care of things. Let me show you how a little boy who's a shepherd boy sees an army of sheep. David walks up and David says, I left seasoned sheep in the fields to come here, and now I've got a frantic bunch of people that are no different than sheep. And we've got to draw these people together. This is what David's saying. I got to draw these people together because I clearly see the king don't know what's going on. I've got to draw these people together. But I think that was like a third, fourth, or fifth thought. I think the first thought was, this guy's not going to scream and yell at my Lord anymore. And he walked down that valley, didn't have anything but a sling, picked up a stone, and he knocked that guy right in the head. And the word says that stone sunk into that dude's head, and he fell. And let me tell you, if we go back to that scripture, he grabbed that giant by the head, just like he grabbed that lion by his beard. See, the lion don't think people are going to grab him by his beard, by his mane. But when he starts to roar, David grabbed him by his mane, stuck a knife up in his head. So when this guy, he might have grunted, I don't know. But when David went over, he grabbed him by his mane like he did the lion, and he cut that guy's head off. Right there, and the sheep saw it. What do you think that did for the sheep? The soldiers saw it. All of a sudden, we're energized. All of a sudden, my God is more than just for me to stand here and be nothing. My God's ready for me going to battle, and I'm ready to do this. I'm sick and tired of this. So now they're energized, and they're like, the battle's on now, devil. So now they run off that hillside. But before I finish, I want to take a real good look at the problem. I want you to look at the problem with me. See the problem for what it is. In verse 57, let's look at it. So when David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner, which is the commander of Saul's army, took him and brought him before Saul, and he had the Philistine's head still in his hand. Now, I still carry that thing. So he still had it in. Whose son is this? He says, whose son is this? I don't know. Go find him. He walked out of there. Let me tell you something. He carried the head of that giant off that battlefield for one reason only. This is your giant that you were afraid of. This is blood dripping all over his legs, all over Saul's tent, everything. I mean, ain't nothing good about this. One eye pointing that way, another one up this way, and he's got him by the hair of his head, and he walks in, that head's about that big around, and he walks in, he says, this is the giant that we were afraid of. This is the thing that roared, and you were scared to death of it. So I brought it into the camp to show you, go get them Philistines and beat their heads down and cut them off. So he said, hey, look, I've got proof there is no giant. And there is no roar that's greater than the voice of the shepherd. So sometimes what roars the loudest is not the greatest threat. Most of the time the greatest threat, the greatest danger lies in how we react to the roar. David took the head and slung that thing and said, look, that's what we were all afraid of. Now let's get up and let's go to battle, people. Come on, stand with me. Let's go to battle. Let's do this thing. God's called us, I'm telling you. We're not just going to stand back and have just a little showing up once in a while and leave just a little bit all tickly. We're going to take what God's put in us. We're going to go outside those doors, and we're going to impact every community that we come in contact with. And ain't no devil going to tell me that we can't do it, because my God says we can. So let's go. Hey guys, you were doing this, and you stopped on us, and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christ Point Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.